What's up everybody, welcome back to How It's Done. Today we are going to be showing you how to install an automated fertilizer system using your sprinkler system. It's very easy to use, doesn't take too much time to set up, does take a little bit of thought and planning into how to configure it and getting the spacing just right. But once you've got it set up, you can easily run a fertilizer from a bucket, inject it into your sprinkler system, and you can water and fertilize all your shrubs, flowers, vegetables, whatever the case may be. You can select it by zone, which ones you want to fertilize, and then just do regular water on the ones you don't. It's real easy. We'll walk you through it step by step today on how it's done. Alright, so the first thing we got to do in order to get this all set up is figure out how we want it configured. Now, with these, most of the time, actually I would say all the time, you're going to want to bypass so that if you're not using this dosing system or injection system, whatever you want to call it, you can use the sprinkler without having to have this activated. So what I've got here is a diagram that shows two different configurations because I don't know how it's going to lay out with this spigot right here. So this has got just regular going to this hose, and then this is our automated watering system for all the different hanging baskets that we've got, so those can be watered daily. Don't know if this is going to be in the way or not. I'm not going to move the spigot, so I might have to have this injection system or dosing system sit sideways instead of up and down like the manufacturer recommends. I'm going to still try and do it up and down because if it sits sideways, it's actually going to stick out a little bit past that. Let's see here. You can kind of see that that's in line with where the bottom is there, and it's going to stick out. I really don't like that. I'm going to try and get it just about here. So that's what I'm going to shoot for. But first thing I need to do, either way, we're going to need to do this bypass assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and get the parts ready for that. Basically going to have a T on either side of it. And actually looking at it, I've got the valves in the wrong spot where I drew these. These valves need to be right here. After the T and then before the T. Same thing here, after the T and before the T. So that's wrong. Yeah, see, this is why you draw it out before you do it. So let's go ahead and get those put together, and we'll take it from there, see how this is going to fit. Alright, so the parts we're going to be using some PVC ball valves. I've got 3 of them. One that's going to go here, one that'll go here, and then the other one is going to sit on the bypass, which I've decided is going to go kind of in front of it instead of above it because I feel like that's going to look a lot cleaner. There is an arrow on this that shows which direction the water needs to be flowing. Not that way, we're going this way. It's going to be easiest to just know that where the water is coming from is going to be where your backflow preventer is. Your backflow preventer is going to have an arrow on it as well. You do have to get a threaded reducer to go from the 1 inch to the 3/4 because the fittings on this are 3/4 fittings. They come with a whole bunch of different fittings that you can use. However, that's if you're using a flexible line, and I'm doing hard pipe because I feel like that's going to be a better option. Hold up a lot better, especially here in the Texas heat, and when you consider UV resistance and all that. So yeah, this threaded reducer basically can slide right into here. We'll just glue it on, and the other piece, or the other side of it, we'll just thread. If I can get it to line up right, we'll just thread right on there, just like that. So I'm going to put some Teflon tape in there, and then we'll tighten that on and get both sides put on and get these glued into place like this. And it is big enough to where we'll be able to open and close these valves without worrying about it hitting the wall. So Alright, so now that these are glued in place and threaded on, we're going to have to add the T's to either end, and then from here what we're going to do, I've gone ahead and cut some pieces of 1 inch about 3 inches long, so we'll put those in there. That'll go into the valve and then the T, and we'll also stick it into this portion. Then we'll have a 90 that goes onto that, and from there they're going to connect to the third valve. So alright, so now that we've got this put together and we've got from end to end, what I'm going to do is go ahead and flip this around just like that, and I'm going to take a measurement from this end over here to over here, and we've got 22 inches, which is a lot. It's a lot more than I was expecting, actually. So we're going to go between the holes, and from here to here we've got 25, which not giving me warm and fuzzies about how this is going to play out. So what I'm going to have to do then, I guess, is take this 90 where it goes straight down into the ground after it's going to the sprinkler system. Probably cut it off right here so that we can still reuse this little lip, and get this to go pretty much right in there like that, to where it goes straight down. That's going to add probably 2 inches, so we'll be at the point where we don't have the space for the backflow preventer, or the check valve, whatever you want to call it, backflow preventer, yeah. So I'm going to have to do some sort of kickoff where it comes out of the ground and it goes over at a certain distance before it hits this. I will probably also need to remove this and just have it go straight into here. Not a big deal, honestly. We've got valves here where we can isolate it from, but remember, I've also got these PVC unions where we're just going to shut it off in ground like we have here in this valve, and then disconnect and bring this whole thing in. I would highly recommend you do this, because honestly, if you've got water in that dosing system and it freezes, it will break stuff. So your best bet is isolate it, bring it in for the winter. You don't really need to worry about winterizing anything else. You just cut it off, bring it in, you're good. So yeah, let me figure out how we're going to address that little kickoff to the side, and we'll be right back. Alright, so I've got the 90 in place with the union at the bottom, so we can, this is what's off the existing one here, so I know that we're going to be good there, and it's got a good distance off the union so that we can get this flexible hose, the fertilizer feed, into here. I'm going to go ahead and remove these two brass ball valves off of this, because we do have the isolation valve in the ground, so this is not 100% necessary. And then we've got two different isolation valves here. In order to kind of isolate it the way it is here, you can turn this and turn this, and you're isolated the same way. But again, this is going to be taken off and brought into the house for the winter, so really no need for that. So we're going to remove these, and then we're going to use some female adapters. We'll do a little piece of PVC here, and then a female, and then thread that onto the end here. Same thing here, we'll thread this on, and then I'm going to go ahead and hook this up, and we'll take some field measurements off of where the pipe comes out of the ground to see how far it needs to kick over in order to connect back up. I might just use the heat gun on the pipe to bend it and make it work, and then cut this piece right here, do a PVC cup link. That way this piece stays straight to a certain degree, makes it a little bit easier to thread up when the need arises to attach and detach. So let's get that done, and we'll get it connected, and I'll show you my measurements. Alright, so kind of just doing a test fit right now, but yeah, we are going to need to kick over about 5 inches. So that's more than I want to go by heating up the pipe. If it was like an inch or so, I'd heat up the pipe and just bend it, do a little bit of an offset. But here I am going to have to do a 90, actually 2 90s. So it'll come up, we'll cut this piece off, use our existing connector for the union, and we'll do a 90 on the top here, 90 over in these pieces that I've kind of test fit, glue everything in place, and glue it in here, and we should be good to go. Then we'll turn on the water and give it a test. It did come pretty close to the spigot. I had to take the 4-way off. I'll probably just pick up a 2-way and use that, since we only use 2 of the 4 outlets on that anyways. But yeah, and then we'll set up the injector and get this thing all set up. Alright, so everything is in place. This is tightened up. This guy's tightened up down here. Both unions are on. We've got this set to where it'll run straight through this, through our dosing system. This right here you'll want to press down when you first start it up. I'll show you that in a second, but this is how you get the air out of the system. Now what I'm going to do, especially since we got this little kickoff to relieve, and I did make the pipe a little bit too long so it was not quite sitting level, so I had to cut some out and put a PVC coupling in there. You know, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes too. It happens. You adapt and overcome. So now what I'm going to do, it did come with this little bracket that you can support this with. Honestly, it's a good idea to do that anyways, but especially since I don't want too much pressure with the weight of it being on these, since this brick actually goes on top of this. Yeah, we're going to go ahead, disconnect these unions. We'll mark where these need to go. I'll drill the holes, put the anchors in, and we'll get that set in place. Alright, now that we're at this point, let's go ahead and turn the water on to the system. So with the water turned on, we're going to go through, look at everything, make sure that we don't have any signs of leaks. Obviously water's not flowing at this point, so not really expecting to see much in the way of leaks, but I'm going to go ahead and close this back up. We'll cover that. Put that rock back in place there, and now I'm going to go get a bucket and the fertilizer we're going to use, and we'll get that set up. So I am going to be using a full 5.5 pound bag of the Miracle Grow Bloom Booster, and this is a little bit over a 5-gallon bucket. Typically I'm just going to fill it to about 5 gallons. This is actually what I use for the salt for the fish tank, what this comes in. I don't know exactly what size this is. This is probably a 6.5 gallon bucket, but I'm only going to fill it till about here, about 5 gallons. So yeah, we'll start filling that up, and then we'll dump this whole bag in. Once I've got about a gallon in there, we'll dump this in and then continue to fill it, let it mix up real good. Something like that. Now, in terms of how much to use, start light and work your way from there. You can see on this, it's got a percentage. See if I can get a little bit closer. It tells you what percentage of the solution is going to go in when you water. So, for example, if you're watering and you want a 1% fertilizer solution, you'll do this. You don't ever want to take this bottom one out. What you'll do is you'll take this top one out and you can twist this. Hang on, there we go. Twist this to adjust it, to dial it in. So say you wanted a 2% solution. That actually says 2.0, 4.0. So that's your percentage of solution that's going in. So if you want to start with, say, 2%, you'll go to there. Take this little pin that it comes with, shove it back in. That prevents it from twisting any further. So yeah, we'll start with 2%. We'll see how that works. So continue filling this up. Super glue. You do want to get a bucket that has a cover. especially if you have pets. I don't want my animals drinking out of this. Not a good idea. So that looks about as full as I want it. So we'll go ahead and grab this hose that it comes with, and it's got a little filter strainer that goes on the end, so we'll go ahead and just click that on there and drop it down into the bucket. And then for the rest of it, this is going to get connected right on there on the end. But what I need to do is I need to drill a hole in the top of this so that this can feed through. Alright, so we've got our mix made up, and you can see where when I started to hook it up, it actually siphoned a little bit through here. You'll be able to tell that it's pulling because obviously it's going to be blue. And yeah, so now you're going to want to go in, turn your sprinkler system on. If you're doing like me, where you're just doing a bloom booster, and you don't really want to do the entire yard, you know, watering the grass and all that with it, you can have it set like this and just pick the zones that you want to hit and just run those. And those are the only ones that'll get hit with the fertilizer. And then once you're done, it recommends you do this once a week to every other week on here. Let me see, yeah, every 7 to 14 days. So you can do it weekly, you know, once a week, maybe Sunday when you're going to water your yard, or when it's going to run automatically. You can set a specific zone. If you've got a smart controller, you can actually just pick specific zones. Say you've got zone 1, 3, and 5 are flower beds. You can pick those, set them up as fertilizer, and set a specific time for them to run. Go ahead and set this to where it'll run off the fertilizer, and just click run and it'll do that. For when you're just doing your general purpose watering, you're going to want to shut this one and this one, and then you'll open up your bypass valve. And that way, like I said, the water will be coming from here, going through this, and then back down to your sprinkler heads. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and close off the bypass. We'll open up the fertilizer, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my sprinkler system, and I'll show you how we purge the air out of this. So the sprinkler system's running. You can hear it clicking. It's working on pulling the fertilizer through. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this down, let it get all the air out of the system. And let this tube get full of the liquid. It might take a little bit of time, but it'll get there. Or maybe not. I don't know. Seems like it's pulling pretty good. But yeah. And that's kind of how I've never used this before. Not 100% sure. More than that, it seems like you press it and it does squirt the water out. It doesn't seem to be closing the gap with this air too much. So I don't know that that's a major issue. The air seems to be staying in this section, so I'm going to say we're fine. It's not really sucking too much air through. And at this point, I think if the air does go through, it's going to just squirt it into the sprinkler heads. So should be okay. Yeah, pretty much all there is to it. Not super complicated. Does take a little bit of work. This was a lot more thought and planning than time actually doing it, but in the long run, I think this is going to make for a really beautiful yard. If you like videos like this, you have comments on what you would have done differently, please let me know. Comment, like, subscribe to the channel. There's a few other things you can do with this system, which I will explain in some later videos, so stay tuned. Hit that notification bell to see what might be coming soon, and we'll see you on the next one.